He watched me cry in the shower. He watched me skip meals so we could afford rent. He watched me work 45-hour weeks until my body ached and my mind went numb. And the entire time, he knew something I didn't. He knew there was never going to be any help. He knew I was completely alone. I just didn't know he was lying to me. Not until I saw the email, and by then, when I finally confronted him, he made me feel like I was the problem. There's a strange kind of pain that comes with knowing the truth. But pretending you don't t.it sits inside your chest like something heavy. Not sharp, not sudden, just constant. Poisoning everything. Every word he spoke after that email felt different. Fake. Calculated. Like I was living beside someone who had replaced himself with a stranger wearing his face. And the worst part, he acted completely normal, like he hadn't just destroyed the foundation of our entire relationship, like he hadn't spent 8 months lying to me while I worked myself into exhaustion, trying to keep us alive. I started watching him differently after that. Not obviously. I didn't accuse him. I didn't confront him, not yet. I just observed. The way he laughed at things on his phone. The way he stretched lazily in the morning while I forced myself out of bed for another long shift. The way he asked me how work was. Like he cared. Like he didn't know that every hour I worked was carrying both of us. It made me feel sick. Not angry. Not yet. Just holla. Something inside me had quietly given up. For 2 weeks, I carried that secret alone. 2 weeks of pretending everything was fine. 2 weeks of listening to him repeat the same lie. It's coming soon. It's still processing. I'll let you know. Every word chipped away at something inside me, because now I knew there was no relief coming. No safety net. No shared burden. There was just me, and the illusion he had carefully built to keep me from realizing it. I started noticing things I had ignored before. How he never seemed stressed. How he never talked about money unless I brought it up. How he never suggested ways to help. He just existed beside me, comfortable, secure, while I was quietly drowning. And maybe the worst realization of all, he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid of losing the apartment. He wasn't afraid of losing our stability. He wasn't afraid of losing me, because he believed I would endure anything before walking away. And for a long time, he was right. The confrontation didn't happen the way I imagined it would. There was no dramatic build-up. No explosion of emotion. It started with something painfully normal. I came home from work, exhausted like always. My body ached. My head hurt. My mind was numb. I didn't have the energy to cook. So I ordered a pizza. We sat together and ate like we had 100 times before. Like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't discovered the truth that was slowly destroying me. He talked about something meaningless. A video he watched. Something funny he saw online. I barely heard him, because all I could think about was the email, the lie, the betrayal. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice came out quieter than I expected. Why didn't you tell me about the unemployment appeal? He froze. It was subtle. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. But I did. Because in that moment, he realized I knew, and everything shifted. He didn't answer immediately, didn't ask how I found out, didn't explain. He just said 4 words. I didn't want to stress you. I'm sorry. I was afraid. Not, I didn't know how to tell you. Just, I didn't want to stress you. Like the lie was a favor. Like deception was protection. Like he had done it for me. Something inside me cracked. I stood up and walked away, because I knew if I stayed there, I would break. He followed me immediately. Of course he did. He followed me into the bedroom, into the hallway, into every space I tried to escape. I didn't think it was a big deal, he said. You're overreacting. The word hit harder than the lie itself. I turned to face him. 8 months. 8 months of carrying everything. 8 months of trusting him. And I was overreacting. I think we should break up, I said. The words felt unreal coming out of my mouth. like they belonged to someone else, someone stronger, someone braver, someone who hadn't spent months sacrificing herself for someone who didn't deserve it. For a moment, he didn't say anything, he just stared at me, not sad, not apologetic, just calculating, and then he said something I'll never forget. I knew this was coming. Not, I don't want to lose you. Not, let's fix this. Just quiet acceptance. Like he had prepared for this moment long before I had. Like he had always known this day would arrive. I couldn't breathe in that apartment anymore. The walls felt too close. The air felt too heavy. So I went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. Not because I needed to wash, but because I needed space. He followed me. Of course he did. He stood there, watching me, waiting, demanding something I didn't have the strength to give. So I left. I walked out of the apartment without saying anything. I didn't grab my phone, didn't grab my keys. I just walked. I needed air, needed distance, needed to escape the person I had trusted most. It was cold outside. I barely noticed. My legs moved automatically, carrying me away from everything that had just collapsed. I walked for 15 minutes until I reached a small park. It was empty, silent, peaceful in a way my life hadn't been for months. I sat down on a bench and tried to breathe, tried to understand how everything had fallen apart so quietly. And then, I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know it was him, because he never let me have space, not even now. He sat beside me, too close, like nothing had changed, like he hadn't destroyed me. And then he asked the question he had been waiting to ask. How did you find out? I didn't answer, because I already knew what was coming. And I was right. His voice hardened. You went through my email, didn't you? I stayed silent. And that's when everything changed. Because suddenly, he wasn't the one defending himself anymore. He was accusing me. And in that moment, I realized he was about to turn this entire situation against me. He had already taken 8 months of my life. When we moved across the country in April, it felt like the start of everything. New city, new apartment, new life. We packed everything we owned into a car that barely fitted all. Boxes stacked so high, I couldn't see properly out the back window. We were exhausted, but we were happy, because this wasn't just a move. It was a commitment to each other, to our future. To the life we promised we'd build together. We said we'd split everything 50-50, not just rent, not just bills, everything, responsibility, the pressure, the weight of being adults in a world that didn't care if we survived. We were partners, a team, or at least, that's what I thought. The apartment wasn't anything special. Old floors, thin walls, a kitchen too small for 2 people to stand in comfortably, but none of that mattered, because it was ours. I still remember the first night. We didn't have furniture yet, just blankets on the floor and cheap takeout containers between us. He smiled at me like everything was going to be okay. We were safe. This is just the beginning, he said. And I believed him without hesitation. Because loving someone means trusting them with parts of yourself you can never get back. And I trusted him with everything. 2 weeks later, he lost his job. I knew something was wrong the moment he walked through the door. He didn't look at me. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, silent. They let me go, he finally said. I didn't panic. Because people lose jobs. It happens. It didn't mean everything was over. We'd figure it out. Together. He filed for unemployment right away. A few days later, he told me he was approved. They said it'll just take a few weeks, he explained. I'll start getting payments soon. I remember the relief that flooded my body when he said that. Because it meant we were going to be okay. It meant I didn't have to be afraid. It meant I wasn't alone. So I stepped up without hesitation. I paid the rent that month, and the electric bill, and groceries, and everything else. At first, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like love. Because when you love someone, you don't keep score. You don't calculate who owes who. You carry them when they fall, and you trust that they do the same for you. He thanked me constantly, told me it wouldn't be like this for long, said the unemployment checks were coming soon, always soon, just a little longer, Just a little more patience. And I gave him that patience freely, because I believed him. I never imagined he'd give me a reason not to. By June, I was working extra shifts. By July, I was exhausted in ways sleep couldn't fix. By August, something inside me had started to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just slowly, quietly, like erosion. I stopped buying things for myself, stopped doing anything that wasn't necessary. Every dollar became survival. Every paycheck disappeared the moment it arrived. Meanwhile, he stayed home. At first, he told me he was applying for jobs every day, and maybe he was. I wanted to believe he was, but over time, the urgency faded. He started sleeping later, spending more time on his phone, more time sitting, more time existing without pressure, while I lived every moment under it. Sometimes, I'd come home so tired I couldn't even speak. My body would ache from standing all day, my mind would feel numb, and he'd be there, relaxed, comfortable, safe, because he knew something I didn't. But I trusted him too much to question it. Every few weeks, I'd ask him the same question, any update on unemployment? And every time, he gave me the same answer, not yet. But it's coming. 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 It became automatic, something he didn't even have to think about, and something I never thought to doubt, because love doesn't prepare you for betrayal, especially not from the person you trusted most. By October, I was barely holding myself together. He had promised unemployment would last until then, that by October, he'd have a job again. October came, and nothing changed, except me. I stopped feeling secure, stopped feeling safe, stopped feeling like we were equals. But I pushed those feelings down, because facing them meant facing something I wasn't ready to accept. That maybe I wasn't being supported at all. Then December came, and everything fell apart because of one small mistake. He left his email logged in on my computer. He didn't realize it. And I wasn't trying to spy. I wasn't looking for anything, but I saw the notification. Just a few words. Unemployment appeal hearing scheduled January appeal. My heart started pounding instantly. Appeal didn't make sense. You don't file an appeal if you've been approved. You file an appeal if you've been denied. My hands were shaking as I clicked on it, and in that moment, without him even being there, without him saying a single word, he broke my heart, because it was denied. Months ago, he had never been approved. He had known the entire time. There was never any money coming. Not in June. Not in August. Not in October. Not now. Not anytime soon. Every time he told me, it's coming soon, he was lying. Every time he watched me leave for work exhausted, he knew I was carrying everything alone. Every time I reassured myself that we were a team, he knew we weren't. I wasn't his partner. I was his backup plan, his survival strategy, his safety net, and he never intended to tell me the truth. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling something inside me collapse. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet, like something fragile finally breaking under too much pressure. Months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of false hope. 8 months of loving someone who was willing to let me suffer to protect himself. And the worst part, he didn't even feel guilty enough to tell me. The next day, he sat beside me like nothing had changed, like he hadn't destroyed something I could never repair. And when I asked him the same question I always asked, any updates on unemployment? He looked at me, calm, relaxed, unafraid. And he lied again. Let you know when I hear something. And in that moment, I realized something that terrified me more than the lie itself. He wasn't afraid of losing me, because he believed I'd never leave. He didn't apologize. He tried to convince me I was cross-eyed, didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't apologize. He didn't even try to explain. Instead, he tried to make me the villain. You went through my email, he said again, his voice calm but sharp. That's a huge violation of trust. Trust. The word felt almost laughable. 8 months of lies. 8 months of watching me carry everything alone. And somehow, he was the victim. I stared straight ahead, refusing to give him the reaction he wanted. The park was quiet. Cold air pressed against my skin. but I barely felt it. All I felt was him beside me, watching, waiting, calculating his next move. I can't believe you do that, he continued. I never thought you were that kind of person. That kind of person. He said it like I had done something unforgivable, like discovering the truth was worse than hiding it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind him of every extra shift I worked. Every night I cried quietly so he wouldn't hear me. Every moment I sacrificed myself to protect a future he already knew didn't exist, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I was starting to feel something worse than anger. I was starting to feel doubt. That's how manipulation works. It doesn't attack you directly. It slowly erodes your certainty, makes you question your right to be hurt, makes you wonder if maybe you really are overreacting. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. You could have just asked me, he said. I almost laughed. I had asked him dozens of times, and every time, he lied. But he said it so calmly, so confidently, like he genuinely believed his own version of reality, and that's what made it dangerous. Because part of me wanted to believe him too, because he was right. But because accepting the truth meant accepting that the person I loved had chosen to betray me. And that was a pain. I didn't know how to survive, he sighed, shaking his head slightly. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to stress you out. He repeated the same excuse. Like if he said it enough times, it would become noble instead of selfish. Like lying to me was an act of love, not an act of preservation. I was trying to protect you, he added. Protect me? From what? From the truth? From reality? From him? I finally turned to look at him, and for the first time, I didn't see my partner. I saw someone else entirely. Someone who cared more about avoiding discomfort than protecting me. Someone who could watch me suffer and justify it. You've been acting differently, he said suddenly. I frowned. Differently? I don't like how you're treating me right now, he continued. You're being cold. Distant. Cold. Distant. The words landed like accusations, not observations. Accusations, like my pain was an inconvenience to him, like my reaction to his betrayal was the real problem. I didn't do anything to deserve this, he said. And that's when something inside me broke completely. Because he truly believed that. Or at least, he wanted me to believe it. He turned to face me fully now. His voice softened. You're acting unstable. The word hit harder than anything else he'd said. Unstable. Not hurt. Not betrayed. Not exhausted. Unstable, like my reaction wasn't normal, like my pain wasn't justified. Like I was the problem. Not him. You've been under a lot of stress, he continued gently. And it's affecting you. He said it like he was concerned. Like he cared. Like he was trying to help me understand something about myself. But I saw what he was doing. He was rewriting the story. Turning my pain into weakness. Turning his betrayal into my instability. And the scariest part, it almost worked. Because when someone you love speaks with enough confidence, you start to question your own reality. He stood up suddenly. Come on, he said. Let's go home. Home. The word didn't feel real anymore. It didn't feel safe. It didn't feel like mine. But I stood up anyway. Because I was too tired to resist. We walked back in silence. 15 minutes. Neither of us speaking. Neither of us acknowledging the invisible line that had formed between us. By the time we reached the apartment, I felt completely numb. Not angry. Not sad. Just empty. Like whatever part of me had believed in us was already gone. Inside, I went straight to the bathroom. I needed space. Needed distance. Needed to breathe without him watching me. But he followed me again. Of course he did. He always followed me. He stood in the doorway, blocking the exit. I need you to explain something, he said. His voice wasn't soft anymore. It wasn't concerned. It was demanding. Why are you breaking up with me? Not, are you okay? Not, can we fix this? Just a demand. Like he was entitled to an answer. Like he hadn't already given me one. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because I knew no answer would satisfy him. He stepped closer. You owe me that much. Owe him. After everything. After 8 months of carrying both of our lives on my back. I owed him. I felt something inside my chest tighten. Not fear. sadness. Just clarity. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He didn't see me as his partner. He saw me as something he owned, something he controlled, something that wasn't allowed to leave. And that's when he said the words that hurt more than anything else. You need help. Not him. Me. The moment I realized I was never his partner, just his safety net. You need help. Those 3 words echoed in my head long after he said them. Not because they were loud, but because of how calm he sounded when he said them. Like he truly believed it. Like he had already decided that the problem wasn't his lies. It was my reaction to them. He stood in the bathroom doorway, watching me, waiting, expecting something. An explanation. An apology. Submission. I didn't know which. I don't understand why you're acting like this, he continued. Acting? Like my pain was a performance. Like my exhaustion was an inconvenience. Like my breaking point was something I had chosen. I stared at the floor, unable to look at him, because I knew if I did, I might start crying again, and I didn't want him to see that. I didn't want him to have that power over me anymore. I've been patient with you, he said. Patient. The word twisted inside me. Patient while I worked overtime to keep us afloat. Patient while I sacrificed my sleep, my comfort, my peace. Patient while I slowly destroyed myself trying to protect something he had already given up on. And somehow, he believed he was the one who deserved credit. I've stayed with you through everything, he added. Everything. What? Everything? What had he endured? What had he sacrificed? What had he carried? Nothing. He had carried nothing. And yet he spoke like he was the victim. I finally looked up at him, and for the first time, I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. Not because he had changed, but because I had finally stopped lying to myself about who he was. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't violent. He wasn't openly abusive. He was something worse. He was comfortable watching me suffer, comfortable benefiting from my love without returning it, comfortable letting me believe in a future he knew didn't exist. He didn't need to hurt me directly, because my love for him was already doing that. You're not thinking clearly, he said softly. His voice had returned to that gentle tone, the one that sounded like concern, the one that almost made you forget what he had done. You're just overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. He made it sound temporary, like my clarity was confusion, like my strength was weakness, like my decision to leave was a mistake I'd regret. And for a moment, a very small, very dangerous moment, I felt myself wanting to believe him, because believing him meant I didn't have to face the truth. Believing him meant I didn't have to accept that the person I loved wasn't who I thought he was. Believing him meant I didn't have to start over. Alone? He stepped closer, not aggressively, not forcefully, just close enough to remind me how familiar he was, how safe he used to feel. You're not a bad person, he said. The words sounded kind, supportive, but they weren't. They were strategic, because he wasn't comforting me. He was reframing the situation, when it seemed like my decision to leave was a flaw, a simple choice. Just because you're struggling right now doesn't mean this is who you really are, he continued. Struggling, like my pain was irrational, like my betrayal wasn't real, like everything I had endured existed only inside my head. He wanted me to doubt myself, because doubt is easier to control than certainty. I realized then, he wasn't trying to fix the relationship, he was trying to fix my perception. He didn't need to change his behavior, he just needed me to accept it, because as long as I stayed, he didn't have to face the consequences of losing me, he didn't have to face the consequences of his lies, he didn't have to face reality. I did. I had been facing it alone for months. I stopped responding, stopped arguing, stopped defending myself. Not because he was right, but because I finally understood something important. He wasn't listening. He wasn't trying to understand. He was trying to regain control, and nothing I said would change that. So I went silent, and silence scared him more than anything else, because silence meant he couldn't manipulate my words. Silence meant he couldn't twist my emotions. Silence meant he couldn't control the outcome. He stood there for a few seconds longer, waiting, hoping I'd break, hoping I'd apologize, hoping I'd stay, But I didn't. Eventually, he left the bathroom. The moment the door closed, my body collapsed. I slid down against the wall and started crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The kind of crying that comes from realizing something you've been avoiding for a long time. I wasn't crying because I lost him. I was crying because I finally saw him clearly. I was crying because the future I believed in was never real. It was built on promises he never intended to keep, hope he never intended to fulfill, love he never intended to match. I stayed there for a long time, long enough for the tears to stop, long enough for the shock to settle, long enough for something else to take its place. Not anger, not sadness, acceptance. Because deep down, I already knew the truth. I hadn't lost him, I had lost the illusion of him, and those are two very different things. Later that night, I sat alone in the dark. He didn't come to check on me, didn't apologize, didn't try to fix anything, because he believed time would fix it for him. He believed I'd calm down. He believed I'd stay. He believed I needed him more than he needed me. And for the first time since April, I realized he was wrong. The hardest truth I had to accept was that love wasn't enough that night. I didn't sleep. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening, not to him, but to myself. For months, my thoughts had been drowned out by survival, bills, work, stress, fear, hope, false hope. But now, in the quiet, I could finally hear the truth I had been avoiding. Nothing was going to change, not because it couldn't, but because he didn't want it to, and that realization hurt more than anything else. Because it meant this wasn't an accident. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't temporary. It was a choice. His choice. He chose to lie. He chose to let me carry everything. He chose to protect himself instead of protecting us. And the most painful part, he chose it every single day. I turned my head slightly and looked at him sleeping beside me, peaceful, calm, unaffected, like none of it mattered, like he hadn't just destroyed something that could never be rebuilt. I wondered how long he had been this person, how long he had been capable of watching me suffer without stepping in. Had he always been like this, or had I just never seen it? Maybe love doesn't blind you. Maybe it just makes you ignore what you don't want to accept. I thought about April. The boxes, the drive, the promises, the way he smiled at me like we were building something permanent. I realized then, I wasn't mourning the relationship we had. I was mourning the relationship I thought we had. The one I believed in. The one that only existed in my mind. Because the reality was different. The reality was lonely. The reality was exhausting. The reality was one-sided. And no matter how much I loved him, I couldn't love him into becoming someone else. Morning came slowly. Gray light filled the apartment. Everything looked the same. The same walls. The same furniture. The same life. But I wasn't the same person anymore. Something inside me had shifted. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Just permanently. He woke up like it was any other day. Checked his phone, stretched. Looked at me briefly. "Are you okay?" he asked. The question sounded empty, automatic, like something he felt obligated to say. Not something he genuinely meant. I didn't answer right away, because for the first time in months, I wasn't worried about his feelings. I was thinking about mine, and mine mattered. Finally, I meant what I said. I told him quietly. His expression didn't change. He just watched me, waiting. "I can't do this anymore." Still no apology, still no regret, just silence, like he was hoping I'd take it back. Like he was waiting for the version of me that tolerated everything to come back. But she wasn't coming back. She was gone. He had destroyed her slowly, lie by lie, month by month, until there was nothing left of her. He sighed. Not sadly, emotionally, just inconvenienced. "If that's what you want," he said. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I understand." Just quiet acceptance, like losing me wasn't devastating. Losing me wasn't even surprising. And maybe it wasn't. Because deep down, he had always known there was a limit to what I could endure. He just didn't think I'd reach it. The next few hours felt unreal. Like I was watching someone else live my life. We didn't scream. We didn't fight. We just existed in the same space. Already strangers. I realized then, relationships don't always end with explosions. Sometimes they end with silence, with clarity, with acceptance, with the quiet understanding that there's nothing left to save. After he left the apartment later that day, I sat alone on the couch. The same couch where he had lied to me. The same apartment I had sacrificed everything to keep. And for the first time, I didn't feel trapped. I felt free. Not yet, but free. Free from the lies. Free from the weight. Free from loving someone who was comfortable letting me break. I cried again. But this time, it was different. This time, I wasn't crying because I lost him. I was crying because I chose myself, and that's a different kind of pain, stronger kind. A necessary kind. I don't know what happens next. I don't know how I'll rebuild. I don't know how long it'll take to trust someone again. Maybe a long time. Maybe never. But I do know one thing. I survived loving someone who didn't love me the same way. And surviving that changes you. It teaches you that love isn't proven through words. It's proven through actions. Through honesty. Through presence. Through effort. Not promises. Not excuses. Not lies disguised as protection. Someone once said that the hardest part isn't letting go of the person. It's letting go of the version of them you created in your mind. The version that would never hurt you. The version that would never lie. The version that never really existed. And maybe that's the real heartbreak. Not losing them, but losing the future you thought you had. But sometimes, losing the wrong person is the first step toward saving yourself.